Just as a quick reminder before we start talking about the standard form of equation, let's talk about the y-intercept and the x-intercept when we're talking about a graph. The y-intercept is the point where a line crosses the y-axis and the point x equals 0. So on line 2, my y-intercept will be right here at -4. And on line 1, my y-intercept would be right here at 3. The x-intercept then is going to be the opposite. The x-intercept is going to be the point where the lines cross the x-axis and y equals 0. So if we look here, here is one of my x-axes, which is at -4. The other one will be right next to it here at -2. Two important things we got to know before we start talking about our standard form. Now that we've talked about standard form of a linear equation, so we've got y equals mx plus b, which is our standard equation, which is our slope-intercept form. We've also got a standard form, which is in the form ax plus by equals c. So we got ax, so some number times x, plus, let's get an x in here, x plus b y equals c. So if we look at it, an example of this, we've got 4x plus 2y equals 13. So we've got an example of what a standard equation would look like. In this equation, another example, 5x minus 2y equals -6. You can have positives, you can have negatives, any of the coefficients you can have. It's just another way to represent our y equals mx plus b equation. If you have the x and y intercepts, you can write this equation. Now, you can also transform this into our y equals mx plus b equation, but for the sake of this video, we'll save that for later. If we have a standard form of a linear equation, we can find and we can graph it. There's just two things we have to do now. Instead, we're going to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept, which is the whole reason why we talked about what an x-intercept was and what a y-intercept was. Let's take the equation 3x plus 4y equals 24. If we are trying to graph it, if we find the x-intercept and we find the y-intercept, that's 2 points. We can graph and create a line. So to do this, we want to find one first. So we'll start with the x-intercept. To find the x-intercept, we set our y equal to 0. So in my equation, I have 3x plus 4 times y, we're setting y equal to 0, equals 24. You'll see this 4 completely cancels out since it's times 0. I've got 3x equals 24, which ends up giving me x equals 8. So I've got an x equals 8. So I have 1 point at 8, 0, because remember we plugged in 0 for y. Now you're going to do the same thing but for the opposite variable to find the y-intercept. So I'm going to set x equal to 0. I'm going to do 3 times 0 plus 4y equals 24. Now you can see that x coordinate is going to disappear, and I'm just going to have 4y equals 24. I'm going to get y equals 6. So this point will be 0 for x, 6 for y. Now that I have 2 points, I can plot those 2 points and then graph the line in between them. And we're going to do that. Show you a couple examples of exactly what that looks like right here. my first example, I have 5x minus 6y equals 60. If I set my, oops, I gotta get my draw on here. If I set my x equal to 0 here, we can see this is going to cancel out, and I'm going to get 6y equals 60. When I solve that, I'm going to get y equals 10. So I've got the point x is 0, y 10. And let's plot it over here. We'll go with 0 and we'll go up by 2. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Here's my first point. My second point then is if now instead I make y equal to 0. Cancel that out. I would have, and you know what? Looks like we had a negative in there, so we'll put that as a negative 6. This should be a negative 10. So let's put this where it should go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It should go right down here. And we'll get that one out of here. Always careful with our signs. So it's good to go back and double check that. So if I try it for when y is equal to 0, now I'll have 5x equals 60. If I divide both of these by 5, I'm going to get x equals 12. So this is going to be a point at 12, comma 0. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going by 2, so I'm going to count 6 over on the x. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 0. I've got my 2 points. And now I can graph this line simply by putting a straight line through it. So that's how simple our standard equation can actually be.